Good afternoon. And a couple of weeks ago, the last time I gave a BBC, I began talking about a verse that we often recite before teachings. It's in the Blue Prayer Book on page 6, and it goes, a star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. So this verse is found in a sutra known as the sometimes it's called the Diamond Sutra, but the more correct translation is the Vajra Cutter Sutra. And it comes right at the end of that sutra. So it was spoken by the Buddha. It's words of the Buddha. And it's advice on how we can look at conditioned things, which mean things arising from causes and conditions, impermanent phenomena, which is just about everything that we deal with, our bodies, our minds, and everything in the world around us. So this verse contains 9 different similes or metaphors to help us understand that the way that things normally appear to us is not the way they really exist. So this is a big topic in Buddhism, what we normally call emptiness. And it's a very difficult topic. I know many of you have heard it before, but some viewers or listeners might not be so familiar. So emptiness is the true nature of things, the actual nature of things. And according to Buddhism, it's because we fail to see the true nature of things that we have all the problems that we do, all the problems that we experience individually, mental problems like depression, anxiety, sadness, and so forth, as well as physical problems and the problems in the world. So all of these problems can be traced to our lack of knowing the true nature of things, seeing the true nature of things. So it's a very important topic to overcome problems and suffering and bring about greater peace and happiness and ultimately enlightenment. So, so I started talking about this verse last time, and I spoke about the first of the 9 similes, which is a star. So today I'm going to talk about the second one. And I mentioned too last time that I was very fortunate to get some teachings on this verse from Yangtze Rinpoche one time in Deer Park, Wisconsin. He gave a short teaching on this. But also somebody reminded me, I had forgotten about this, but in this book, which Venerable Children edited, teachings by Kensur Jampa Tekcho, called Insight into Emptiness, chapters 19 and 20 also contain quite extensive explanation of this verse and these 9 different similes. Okay, so the second one, in the text here, it says mirage, but other translations say something else, like a fault of vision or a visual aberration. And actually the Tibetan term, and probably the Sanskrit term as well, that is the meaning. It's some kind of eye disease. And this actually comes up often in teachings. They talk about people who see falling hairs. Have you heard that one before? So apparently it's a condition that can happen to elderly people, some elderly people, where they see like hairs falling in front of their eyes, or apparently they can also look at a bowl, like a bowl of food or a plate of food, and they see like hairs or even insects, I've heard, So that'd be pretty distressing, if somebody hands you a plate of food and you look at it and it looks like there's insects crawling around it, you'd be pretty upset. But apparently these visions, these appearances are not really there. They appear, but they're not really there. So a person who has good eyesight and doesn't suffer from this condition will say to this person, no, 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 you're seeing those things because of your eye disease, because of this condition, and they're not really there. So calm down, don't worry, don't feel bad. And especially if they go to an eye doctor and a specialist in eye diseases and they trust this person says, well, you have such and such disease, and that's why you're seeing those things, but we'll do something about that. And hopefully it can be cleared up. So this analogy is used as a metaphor for how we ordinary beings, maybe some of you are not in this category, but I know I am, ordinary beings who haven't yet realized emptiness, and our mind, every experience that we have is under the influence of what's called ignorance, misapprehension of things, such that everything that appears to us appears as if it's real or inherently existing, independently existing, truly existing, which means having its own way of existing from its own side, independent of everything else. This is actually very subtle. It's not something easy to understand or easy to recognize. But they say that this is how things appear to us. And we've always seen things that way, not only this lifetime, but in past lives as well. So it's like our default mode from many, many lifetimes ago. So we can't help it. It's not our fault. It's just, our mind is built that way. And so things appear that way, and we don't know any better. So we just totally buy into that appearance, believe in that appearance, and act as if things do exist in that way. And that's how we get into all the trouble that we do, because things appear very real and solid from their own side, and then if they appear in some kind of unpleasant way, we react with anger, aversion, fear, and so forth, and that can lead to lots of problems. Or if they appear pleasant and attractive, then we react with desire and greed and attachment, and that also brings lots of problems. So our emotional problems arise on the basis of this mistaken way of seeing things. And so then if we take a person who doesn't see things that way, for example, the Buddha. So the Buddha is somebody, he was like us once upon a time, but he managed to clear up this mistake in his mind. And so he no longer sees things in that way. He doesn't see things as if they're existing in a real, inherent way from their own side. He sees things as they do exist. So he's like a person who has good eyesight and can say to us, okay, I know you see things that way, but it's actually wrong because of this mistake in your mind. And so he can help us. If we follow the Buddha's teachings, we can also, free ourselves from this mistake, this problem, and come to see things in a correct way. Clear up this faulty vision of our mind. So the Buddha gave this analogy to help us understand how, we are like the person who has this eye disease. We're seeing things in a mistaken way, getting all emotional about it. And Buddha is like the person with good eyesight who can help us be free of that. But on the other hand, it does say in this text, mirage. And personally, I like the analogy of a mirage. It does come in many other texts as well. It is a common simile for understanding emptiness. And because I have seen mirages, I haven't had this problem of hairs falling, so I don't have that experience, but I've definitely seen mirages. For example, when I was a kid growing up in Sacramento, sometimes the weather would be super hot, like over 100, even 110. And if you're outside in the middle of the day, if there's a surface like a parking lot or a road, and the sun is overhead shining down on this surface, you see something that looks like a puddle of water. And you could swear it's a puddle of water. It's all glistening, shining. But if you walk right up to it, get closer to it, it disappears. Not a drop of water there. And even the appearance disappears. So I've had that experience of seeing a mirage, and also sometimes in the desert. So for me, that's a very, strong simile. And I really like that because in a similar way, we see things as existing in a certain way. But they say if things really did exist the way they appear to us, the closer we get, the more carefully we look and investigate. If they really exist that way of appearing should become more and more real, clearer and clearer. But that's not what happens. If we look at the way things appear to us, inherently existing, truly existing, and we, move closer and closer, investigate more and more carefully, is that true? Does it really exist that way? What happens is it becomes less clear, more fuzzy, more uncertain, and eventually, if you do this again and again in the correct way, that mistaken appearance will disappear altogether, just like a mirage disappears when the conditions are no longer there for it to appear. So that's the realization of emptiness. I haven't gotten there yet, but those who have, this is what they say. When you really investigate the false mode of appearance of things, it vanishes. It completely disappears altogether. So then you can recognize, oh, it's a false appearance because of conditions, because of our mind being under the influence of ignorance and imprints from previous lives. So because of conditions, things appear to exist in that way, but they don't really exist that way. Okay, so either or both of those might be helpful for you to get a little bit more understanding of how things appear in one way. But if we question that, we don't just immediately buy into it, but we question it. Is that true? Do things really exist in that way? And we're willing to go through the time and energy it takes to get an understanding of emptiness. First listening, studying, thinking, meditating, discussing with others, as we often do here. Then eventually we too will be able to get to that point where the false mode of existence disappears and we have good eyesight, good vision of the way things do exist.